Well, how we doing, everyone? We're back. It's Derby week. Celtic versus Rangers is a matter of days away. 12:30 kick-off at Celtic Park. 293 days since the last time we faced our rivals, and a bit of a point to prove. I am Hamish Carton. You're watching live on 67 Hail Hail YouTube. David Walton's with me as well. Worth pointing out, David, I don't know if I should give the secret away, but we are using a new programme for this live stream tonight, so we're kind of fingers crossed that everything works as planned. It looks okay so far. How are you?
Hi, not bad, mate. It looks okay so far, but it's only been about 10 seconds, so we'll see how we go on. But I look forward to getting talking about the game.
Right, thanks everyone who's watching this video. There's a good number of you so far. If you're anything like us too, you'll be absolutely buzzing for Saturday's game. A real chance to put our stall out for the season. We're going to run through our kind of predicted 11s for the game, David, and basically just kind of deal with some of the big talking points surrounding that as well. It's probably quite a tough team to pick, isn't it? There's a lot of various kind of different positions that you could pick, different players, and obviously the COVID cases, 3 positive ones plus Ryan Christie have kind of made things difficult as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been ridiculous, to be honest, the week we've had for the international break. And it's funny because you would think with the knocks we have had that the team should actually be quite easy to pick. One of those teams that should just kind of pick itself, but it is tough. You'll see a lot of variation, I think, for the supporters and how they'd line up in this game. I think it's a game that really hits the heart. You really, really want to win this one. So I think we'll see a lot of different variations, and I'm sure me and you might differ as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. We usually do. Right, we're gonna fire through the team while you're watching this. If you've got any thoughts, any comments we make, any rash claims we make, any players you would like to see that we're not giving a mention, just let me know. I have all the comments come up at the side here, and I can bring them into the conversation as well. Right, formation wise, are we both going with 3-5-2? I certainly am.
I'm doing it, and I'm not sure if I would have done it if we had a full complement, to be honest, but I'm going with it because I really don't see a lot of players who can play in that right side. I don't even think I'm not even sure we've got the personnel for two players on it. So I would go with 3-5-2, and it gives you that opportunity to see what Rangers are like when a team has a right go at them. Which I think we will. I think we'll really look to take the game to them, and probably the best way of doing that is with a 3-5-2. I maybe would have went with a flat four at the back if we had a full personnel, just to sort of limit the threat Rangers will pose down the flanks, because they'll pose a considerable one down the left and the right. So, but yeah, I think I'll go for 3-5-2, simply because of the injuries we've had.
Yeah, I'd really want to see us lay a glove on them because we haven't in the last two derbies. We've let them stroll about the park like they own it. And that's probably the most disappointing element in the last two games. I think you raise a good point about the right-sided players. If you look at the players who have been ruled out of this game so far, most of them have a kind of right side leaning in terms of James
Yeah.
Forrest obviously is injured. Hatem El Hamed's a right back. Beaton would play in the right of a back three usually if he played. Even Ryan Christie's played, right midfield
Exactly.
effectively some games last season. So it is a worry that we only really have Jeremy Frimpong there, and if Frimpong goes down with an early injury, I'm really struggling to see what we do in that right wing back position.
Yeah, it could be that Lennon really needs to have a totally different plan B, because I agree with you. You can't just throw El Yunusi, for example, on the right, in my opinion. I think he'd be so ineffective. Um, I'm just trying to go through players who could maybe play there, but I can genuinely barely think of one outside of Frimpong just now. Don't want to throw any ridiculous suggestions in, so I think you might need to have a tweak in formation in mind, just in case that was to happen. Frimpong takes some heavy treatment, and I would expect Rangers to actually be sniffing an opportunity there, to be honest. Um, if Frimpong went off injured, I think a lot of their fans and their players would be laughing.
Yeah. If we start at obviously nets, I don't think there's much debate that the Barkas will start the game. And if you look forward into the back three, you probably get the same issue in that with El Hamid injured, or not injured, sorry, out, positive COVID test. Same goes for with Beaton, means that you basically forced into picking that back three of Duffy, Ayer, and Julian.
Yeah, but it's a strong back three. You know, it's not a back three that if Lennon chose with his full complement, you'd be sitting there going, "Oh God." That's maybe the back three I'd have chose regardless. Maybe Buton's form probably would have merited inclusion if he was fit. But I'm happy with the back three. If there's an injury to that, I mean, Stephen Welsh getting the call because I'm not sure if we actually have a replacement
No, that's
for the
it.
back line now either. So, but yeah, I think that's the back three you have to go with. That has to be what Neil does, and I think he will do it.
A few question marks over Julian, mainly because of his injuries and people saying that. I saw a quote about Neil Lennon a while ago saying that he's a player who takes a lot of time to get up to speed, and that's why he took so long last season initially integrating him into the team. But this is a £7 million player who, for me, has saved his best performances for the European games and the games against Rangers. And if you're looking at top players who are going to stand up and be counted, I think him, Ayer, and Shane Duffy, who's obviously a big game player. That's a really solid backline, isn't it, for a game like this?
I listen. You know, I like Ayer. You know, I wouldn't say too many bad words about him at all. But with regards to Julian, you're spot on to sort of pinpoint how he performs in these games. I don't think he had a bad game against Rangers last season at all. Even in the one where, even the one we lost 2-1, he won a penalty. He had two headers, one cleared off the line, another one came quite close as well. He tries to be an influence in these games. So I also think it's a case of a needs must as well because we just don't have a replacement outside of Stephen Welsh. So, yeah, for me, you put Julian in there every day of the week, and I don't think there's a debate when you look at our selection just now. I think our defence is strong, especially the inclusion of Duffy in there. I think our defence gets some ridiculous stick, to be quite honest, in a formation that is always going to leak chances. But I think you've got good personnel in there, and it's a personnel that should deal with Rangers' attacking threat if they're on their game.
I don't think we've conceded too many goals recently. If you look at it, clean sheet St Johnstone, clean sheet Hibs, clean sheet in the two Europa League games, Ross County as well. I'm sure there's other ones in there.
Yeah, we've not conceded goals, but we have conceded some chances. But I don't think that's honestly the defence's fault, believe it or not. I think that's just the way we're playing just now, and the fact we push so many players up the pitch in a 3-5-2 shape. I just think it lends itself to conceding some opportunities.
Question in there, I'm not going to try and pronounce your surname because it's just a load of kind of, those words you get with no vowels and it's just consonant after consonant. Okay. But the question, I'll put it up on screen, basically, will the lack of fans remove some of the pressure off the newer players? Now, obviously, we've already touched on Barkas, who will start, Duffy will obviously start the game, a few other players in the team possibly, further forward. What do you think about that? It's quite an interesting point, isn't it? The fact that Laxalt's another one we might come on to. Making your derby debut with no fans, is that less intimidating? Well, it must be surely than normal.
Probably, but I think it all depends on the personality of the individual.
Yeah, true.
I think sometimes can maybe tend to group players in as one, and everyone's different. I think, for example, Duffy would have loved fans. I think I'm right up for it. I'm sure he'll be up for it anyway, but having the fans here, I think would have pushed him further. I'm not going to predict who maybe wouldn't like fans there because I think that suggests they've got a weak mentality. You've seen people talking about how Rangers are maybe flourishing without any fans. But I don't know. I'd like to think all of our players would just love the fans in and would love the opportunity to make themselves a derby hero, similar to how, Moussa Dembele threw himself onto the scene, for example, how Julian threw himself into being a hero with his performance at Ibrox. But it does just depend on the individual player. I'm sure you might have some of the new guys in there thinking to themselves, oh, okay, I could do with this sort of quiet initiation. But you'll certainly have the ones that are like, God, if this place was packed on Saturday, it'd be brilliant. So just it depends on the individual. But I think it'll take something. Of course, it'll take something away from the game. But either side will have their players that will thrive, or maybe be a bit less influential with the removal of fans.
I think it's a great point you make because I had it in my head that almost that players would quite like to play their first derby with no fans because it is less intimidating and they can feel their way in. But then when you're speaking there, I'm thinking back to the quotes made by Barkas when he signs, or Ajeti when he signs, and virtually every Celtic player. And you can probably say the same for that mob across the city. we want to play in the derby matches, full house, the biggest derby, in my opinion, in world football, and we want to enjoy that. These professional footballers want these amazing moments. So I think you're right. I think if you gave them the opportunity, you can play this game with fans or without. They would absolutely want to play fans. Even the Rangers players coming to Parkhead would probably rather play in front of fans, because that's what professional players want to do. Right. Key part of the game for me, probably the most key, or the keyest, whatever the phrase is, wing backs. Because for me, Rangers' two biggest threats come from their full-back positions. Tavernier's crossing and Barisic's crossing. It's a different kind of crossing. I think Tavernier crosses from deeper. I think Barisic is more inclined to hit the byline and maybe cut back. But both very, very decent players in terms of their crossing ability. On the flip side, from the Celtic point of view, we have two really good fullbacks now. Well, three probably. Frimpong will undoubtedly start on the right-hand side. What about the left-hand side, David?
Yeah, I just throw Laxalt in there because I wouldn't be too keen on Greg Taylor starting. I could just see Tavernier getting the better of him, mate. I really could if we threw Taylor in. I'd like to see Laxalt with his pedigree. And I'm not going to pretend I've seen Laxalt. I certainly wasn't watching Milan every week when he played for them. Can't remember him at the World Cup to any great degree. But, he's a sign that Lennon's already said is fit to play. He's not hit out with he's going to need a few weeks stuff. So you put him in, you get him in there, see what he's about. I think he's a player that you would hope would thrive in a debut like that. But you make a really good point with the threat Rangers pose down the flanks. You said Barisic and Tavernier have decent crossing. Let's not kid ourselves, they have some very good crossing ability, the pair of them. And that's something we need to watch out for. I'm sure we'll come to our midfield in a minute, but I would use a couple of those players just to stay alert, considering stay alert to the threat each fullback's going to pose, because I think there's going to be space there for Rangers that we need to cover appropriately.
Yeah, I think Laxalt's got to play, doesn't he? He's got to start the game.
Yeah, I think so.
This is a guy who has played for one of the biggest teams in Italy. He's also played consistently in Serie A over the last few years. This is a guy who's played in a World Cup quarter-final against France. This is a guy who, with all due respect to Rangers, and they have a few decent players, he's not getting too worried by facing Jordan Jones or Brandon Barker.
That's right.
And even more so, adding to the point I did make earlier, as much as Laxalt would probably rather play at a full Celtic Park, it is perhaps easier to give him his debut. It's not as if you're saying, right, there's your debut, chuck you in at the deep end, go and deal with that atmosphere, go and deal with everything that comes with this derby. I think a lot of that has been taken away by the fact there's no fans there. It's very much a game of football. It's almost in many ways a training ground game of football because there's no fans there. Obviously there's a far greater intensity than that, but he's not a player who's getting, overwhelmed by going up against Rangers. As I said, this is a guy who's played in a World Cup quarter-final against France just a couple of years ago. He'll be fine. It's not as if we signed him, 48 hours before the game. We signed him over a week ago, and the game's still a few days away. He's had a chance to train. He's met a lot of the players. He will meet the players, I'm sure, between now and the game on Saturday. And another point is, it's not as if he's playing with a partner. It's not as if he's a centre mid or a centre back that needs to forge that relationship. He's a left back. He can play his game. He knows his game well. Get up that wing, get down, and keep Tavernier defending rather than attacking. Because I genuinely believe if he can do that and Frimpong can do likewise on the right hand side, we've got a great chance of getting a result. Right, midfield.
Well, I've went for the three. I've went Brown, Cham and McGregor. Now the reason I mainly went for Brown, he's always going to play in these games. There's no point even pretending that Lennon might not choose Brown. I know some people might want Turnbull in there, but I can't see him taking Brown off. I think Lennon's already said that. So I've gone for sort of Brown as a sort of right centre mid, Cham as the centre mid, and McGregor's the left sort of centre mid. I would have Brown and McGregor just being aware of the space that could be opening up on either flank to try and help cover Frimpong and Laxalt when they're attacking, because that's what Rangers are going to try to exploit for me. So that would be my midfield. I just don't see what else you could maybe do with it. I mean, maybe yourself, maybe you guys in the comments have an alternative, but I think that would be the right way to go. I'm not sure about throwing Turnbull in. I think he maybe had a chance, or his big chance to impress against St Johnstone. I think we'd all agree it wasn't the best performance from him. So I would go with this, what I would call a trusted 3 for now.
I agree. I think McGregor, Brown sitting with Ncham in front of them. I think Ncham raises his game in these big matches. He's often...
Mate, you're spot. Sorry, mate, to interrupt you there.
Right.
You're spot on. How often do you see, even in some of the games we're losing, Cham coming on these games and Rangers really struggling to get some error or change out of him? He really enjoys these games and he really shows his class. I think you can see likes Arfield and Jack a lot of the time when they're coming up individually one-on-one against them, they're schooled at times. So I'd throw him in. I think he'd thrive. I do think he'd thrive at the weekend. So sorry about that, but I just thought I had to get that in there.
No, you're spot on. The fear about Ncham's the lesser games, the St Mirren's away, the St Johnstone's away, which he invariably plays poorly. But these big games, absolutely no worries. He's a big game player in Cham. He will keep the ball for fun, and I think that's going to be important that we assert our dominance on the game. Right, we'll move it on because we're kind of running short for time. We've still got probably the biggest issue to talk about. The front two, you can have any two out of Edouard, Ayeti, Klimala, Griffiths, El Yunusi, even Tom Rogic if you want him. Who are you picking? Who's your two?
I'm going to go with Ajeti and Klimala. Just on the basis of I don't know if Edouard's going to be ready. He might, if he is, get him in there. But I'm just assuming this based on Edouard maybe just not being up to scratch. Klimala, if you're trying to look for logic as to why I'm throwing him in, it's more of a hunch. I've just got this feeling he'd produce in the game. And I think Ajeti, I'd love to see him against Rangers. I'd love to see how he performs. He looks like a player that will raise his game against a team like that and on an occasion like that. I'm going with the front two because, as I say, I'd like to see a team really have a go at this Rangers backline. I'm not convinced with their defence at all. I don't give a toss about how many clean sheets they go against the likes of St Mirren and all that at the start of the season. I'm not convinced by it. And I think it can be got at, and by your personnel too. Maybe an argument to play El Yunusi off a striker. I'm not sure. I've not been impressed with Mohamed El Yunusi this season. I've got to be honest. I don't think he deserves to start. And I'm not overly sure he would turn up for the occasion. I know others might sort of think, well, he's more of a big game player, but I think we've yet to see that from him. So for me, I'm going to give Klimala a shot alongside Ajeti and see how that goes. But if Edouard is fit, yeah, Paddy can wait. I'd put Edouard in alongside Ajeti, but yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Right, I've got Edouard. I think he's going to start. He's a big game player. He changes the tone of derby matches. You only have to remember back to the League Cup final in December. They're on top. Edouard comes on. First thing he does is win a free kick from Goldson, who just couldn't handle him right from minute one. Gives a free kick away, a silly challenge. What do you know? We score from the resulting free kick. Julian puts it in and we win that game. The whole atmosphere changed when he came on. That is why Edouard, no matter what's happened to him recently, has to start this match if he is 85-90% fit.
I mean, I agree with you, mate. I'm not saying, as I say, I'm not saying start Ajeti and Klimala if Edouard's fit, but totally agree. He has to play if he's ready and fit. And by all accounts, he might be, by the way, because Lennon has said he's been keeping active and sort of hinting towards that he might be available, which would be terrific. Would change the atmosphere around the supporters before the game.
Yeah, he's had a lot of thinking time as well, Edouard, self-isolation, a lot of time to plan what wonderful stuff he's going to get up to on Saturday and what he's going to do for, what he's going to do to Helander or Goldson or whoever plays at the back for that mob. And it's probably not going to be PG, whatever happens. It's going to be filthy, because that's what Edouard enjoys, a bit of derby filthiness. I think, I'll ask the question, is there any chance of Lee Griffiths starting the game in your mind?
Not starting it. I think it'd be pretty contradictory of Neil Lennon if he went and start Griffiths after the stuff about players not being up to speed for the Champions League qualifiers. I think he'll keep Griffiths on the bench, but I think he'll play regardless of what the scoreline is in the day. I mean, if we're chasing the game, he'd be an obvious sub. If we're winning the game, I could see him throwing him on as well. I think he's a terrific. I love Lee Griffiths. I think he's superb. I don't think he'll start. Just a wee bit too early. 14 minutes or so all season. No, I think you've got players there that deserve the chance more just now.
Right, Ayeti for me is the key. Hopefully he starts, and I agree with you. I think he's a man for this kind of occasion. He's the kind of guy, like Gary Hooper had an amazing record in these games, that would create a chance or even have a chance played to him and he would take it. He'd only need one chance, but he'd take it. So I think Ayeti is a key player. Obviously, we don't know exactly the state he's in. It's just so up in the air at the moment, isn't it? We don't know the state of Edouard. We don't know the state of Ayeti. Two absolutely massive players for us. Julian, another one that we don't really know what's happening. So it's Neil Lennon's press conference is going to be really interesting, and I think our bench could have a real big part to play as well. You know, you're probably going to have Turnbull, you're going to maybe have El Yunusi, maybe Griffiths, Klimala, Rogic maybe coming off the bench, and that bench is far stronger than their team. I mean, those are players who would walk into their team, in my opinion. So it could really be interesting. We'll round this video off, David. How are you feeling about it? The whole occasion, no fans. What's going to happen? And give us a prediction.
Well, we had a conversation with you, John McGinley. John Reid, we spoke yesterday, and John McGinley brought up a good point. He said, a Celtic team can tend to surprise you when they're not, maybe not favourites. I feel a bit dirty not calling us favourites or anything like that, but when you don't expect them to play too well, and I think that could be what happened. I think Celtic will surprise. I think they'll maybe control the game. I think they'll play to a higher standard than we're maybe expecting. Maybe similar to the derby that started the season last year at Ibrox. So I'm optimistic, but listen, I'm respectful of the dangers some of the Rangers players pose. You know what I mean? I'm not of this opinion that they have nothing, and they don't have the ability to harm us. We have to respect the threats that they're going to pose because they have some dangerous attacking talent that's going to have to be tamed. If we do that, I think we'll be on to a winner. I do think we have the better players. I think we've got a more successful and better manager, and I think we have a better mentality that will suit us well on the day. So I'm going to go for a nice, cool, no worries, 2-0 win to Celtic.
God, I'd love that so much. I think the most dangerous part about this game, from our point of view, is that we have a point to prove, and I think we will be absolutely choking to put them in their place. Yes, we won the league last season, but it wasn't how we wanted to win it. I think there's still a feeling of not quite being there, not having the upper hand in them, because they've dominated us the last two derby matches. They won the most recent one. That was 293 days ago. It was almost a full calendar year. Scott Brown, Neil Lennon will be hurting badly. And maybe not anymore, but that fire will still be in them to put this right. I think we've got so many players who have a point to prove. Shane Duffy has a massive point to prove. Why have you come to Celtic for these big matches? Are you going to deliver? Christopher Ajer, Christopher Julian, massive point to prove, because I think the last couple of games Morelos has had a bit of joy, especially against Ajer. I think they've got a point to prove. Scott Brown has a huge point to prove. He's been chasing shadows, as has Callum McGregor in the last few derby matches. And Cham's got a point to prove as well. And Odsonne Edouard, if he plays, has still got a point to prove. Not to do with this fixture. He's proven himself numerous times in this fixture. But overall, he's had a lot of criticism come his way. For me, that is the most dangerous part. We have a point to prove. We are the champions. We have better players. We have home advantage. And those are the 4 reasons we're going to win this match. 1-0.
Oh, well, we all that bravado. I thought it was going to be a bit better than 1-0.
A deflected 94th minute goal.
Nah, but you do make a good point. They all have a point to prove. Going all the way back to your goalkeeper as well. How much better a light would Barkas be viewed in by some if he had a good performance against Rangers? I think he has a few saves to make.
He is waiting on his blockbuster moment, and he's not had it yet. Could it come on Saturday? Could it come against AC Milan? He's waiting on that save, a penalty save or amazing save, that Fraser Forster moment when everyone goes, right, he's the man. I hope it comes this Saturday. Obviously I do, but equally if he doesn't have a save to make and we won 1-0.
Exactly.
Love that one. Right, I think that's us, David. We've spoken at length. The nerves are there, but it's the kind of nerves you love it, eh? You love these games because they give you those butterflies. Yeah, we'll continue the build up on the channel. We'll be hearing from you again later on in the week, David. We'll also be hearing from the channels John McGinley and John Reid as well. I've got another tactical video coming tomorrow, and obviously after the game as well, me and John McGinley will be chatting like we are now, live reaction. Thanks to everyone who's tuned into this video. David, thanks very much.
Aye, thanks for having me on, and thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem at all. We'll speak to you soon. Until next time, take care and hail hail.